Post-1945 European television differed from its American counterpart in its purpose and agenda. In the United States, television was a thing of industry, directed by private networks and interests. It followed the laws of marketing. In Europe, television was for public service, informing the public as well as swaying its opinions. Although each European country differed in its underlying reasoning to promote television, the general consensus was that television was a tool for the state, which controlled what was to be viewed. In the 1950s and 1960s, Soviet leaders quickly recognized television as useful. At this point in history, the Soviet Union was trying to promote socialism as the ideal form of government. Television served as an example of the success and scientific prowess of the socialist government. In addition to providing outsiders with the image of accomplishment, Soviet television also attempted to convince its own citizens of its success. In reality, though, the regime was far from the image it tried to give. In Germany, television aimed to bring citizens and families together, mostly the middle class. To do this, news broadcasts centralized their information and airtime. As a result, the room where the television was kept became a place of rendezvous. However, some programs were tainted with a fixation on past defeats, which only divided the nation. Television in Great Britain was directed towards the upper middle class. While it was also a method to bring about cohesion in social groups, there was an emphasis on programs concerning education and other upper-class values. Examples include scientific productions. Interestingly enough, the general progress of television could be linked to political attitudes that pervaded France at this time. Its programs promoted national identity, conveying the overall message that France was superior to the other countries of the continent, and how its destiny was to assume leadership.
Remember when I sang the words and they made...
Intellectuals, as opposed to governments, viewed television distastefully. Some feared that television would be an opiate to the masses, giving people set opinions rather than allowing citizens to formulate their own. Others feared that increased time spent in front of a television would dull overall intelligence. In fact, intellectuals in France rejected television. Critics of television have also expressed that TV may desensitize an audience to the danger and reality of war. When it broadcasts live images of mangled corpses, viewers at home may dissociate the image from reality, believing it to be fake as in movies. Television enabled citizens to learn about the lifestyles and events of other places with just the flip of a switch. In fact, in the 1960s and 1970s, there was a law in East Germany that prevented citizens from watching programs from West Germany and from learning about the quality of life on the other side. Leaders feared that citizens would be drawn to the indulgent ways of the West. Regardless, numerous East Germans broke this law and began comparing and contrasting the two lifestyles. They learned about the lifestyle of the West Germans and they demanded it for themselves. Television allowed the Romanians to coordinate their actions in the revolution in 1989. As the revolutionaries in Bucharest won control of the state television station and transmitted images of their actions, citizens in Timisoara almost immediately took on the same revolutionary symbols and programs. The power of the fast-paced image transmission of the television enabled Romanians to unite in their efforts in the overthrow of communist rule. Up until the 1960s, televisions used vacuum tube electronics. Unsuitable for color, unreliable in its transmission, and uneasy to transport, solid-state electronics soon replaced the vacuum tube in the early 1970s. In addition, instant replay was invented by Tony Verna, allowing for replays to be shown during televised sporting events. The 1970s also saw the first primitive mechanical remote control, or electronic tuner, that came to replace the traditional dials. With cable television just a decade later, remotes became even more popular, while black and white televisions were no longer as commonly seen. In fact, most Western Europeans had already adopted the PAL, an analog color code, standard. Soon, small handheld LCD TVs were made along with S-video inputs, allowing the advent of VCRs and video games. Although all televisions have the same basic functions, several brands differ in certain auxiliary functions and in depth and color. Plasma displays were first developed in 1964, though not well known or even commonly purchased until the last decade. These screens are typically very thin, as they are only about 10 centimeters in width and are meant to be hung on walls. Still first in flat-screen TVs, LCD TVs are quickly gaining, and other innovative models are currently underway.
Kiss me once, then kiss me